Hello everyone, it's Julia with Senior Susie Stamps. I'm glad you're here today. I wanted to go over and show you my scrap paper supplies. And what I've done, I used to have all of my paper, 12 by 12 designer paper, pretty much on this rack. And I really struggled to find packs that were active enough to have a bunch of scraps in them. So I pulled all my paper off these racks, and now every year I just put an assortment of paper packs that have scraps left in them and try to use that scrap pile up this year. So this is what I'm working on this year, and I thought today we'd grab this one. And this is an old Paper Wishes pack called On Butterfly Wings, I believe is the paper. If not, it's the paper towel. It's probably no longer available. But I thought today we would try to use this scrap pack to make some of these cards. This is a card that I found on Connie Stewart's channel, and she has made it as a triple Z card. I like to kind of make mine as a J fold, so I'm going to make mine just a little bit differently than she did, but it folds up nice and flat to go in an envelope. It has a lot of surface area, and you can see I could have put designer paper all across the back. So these are big usage cards as far as scraps go. Let's look at these other two while I got you here. And this is one using some paper that I designed in Canva. We've already been through that basic video, but see how pretty these cards turn out. And here's the back on that one. Plenty of room for a little note if you wanted to leave one. And then here's another sheet that I designed recently, and this is a nice Mother's Day card. It's cheerful and pretty, and the back is just as nice as the front on this card. So let me get my workstation fixed up here and we'll get started. So rather than use a white sheet of paper, I wanted to use a little lighter weight cardstock, and I found this nice piece of kind of, I don't really know what you call that. It's just an overall mottled color. And I thought it would go nicely. We're going to use this piece of paper towel on the front of this. But see how nice this little piece of paper will go with these scraps in here. I'm thinking maybe we'll use this piece with the roses on it for sure. And then I'm going to need a second piece of something. Don't want to use that one, but perhaps the pink we might be able to use on this card and get quite a bit of those two pieces used up. The first thing we want to do now is to get the scoreboard out and score the cardstock. So let me move this stuff out of the way, and we'll do that. The scores are 1 3/8 and 2 3/4, and you'll put your 11-inch side across the top. With this being lighter weight cardstock, I'm going to have to be a little careful not to puncture through my cardstock. So 1 3/8 is the tick between 1/4 and 1/2. I know some people struggle a little bit with the 1/8 marks. And then we're going to move over to 2 3/4. And now we're going to take a pause and cut this in half to 4 1/4 by 11. And I'm going to get my long cutter out to do that. So 4 1/4 by 11. And then choose whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. Set the other one aside for right now and come back to your scoreboard. We're going to need that cutter again in just a second. So this is my original score, and I'm going to flip it to the other side and do exactly the same thing. 1 3/8 and 2 3/4. There we go. That's all the scoring we need, so I can go ahead and put my scoreboard away. And I'll get my cutter back out. Take your score, your 2 little score lines, and put them over here at the 8 1/4, and then move to the right 1 little tick. So it's actually 8 3/16. I know that gets a little cumbersome, but and I'm about to cut my wrong piece of paper here. This is the one that only has the 2 score lines on it. So 8 3/16, and that's 1 tick back from 8 1/4. This is a piece that can go in your scrap bin and be used for another card. We may use it as a backer for that piece of paper towel in a minute. So I'm just going to set that aside over here. So this one then, we're going to turn to the short side and cut 3 1 1/4 inch strips. And this little narrow 1/2 inch strip you can set aside as well. And that is all of the cutting that we'll do on the cardstock. Now I want to come back in with my designer paper and cut it all to 4 inches. And I'm going to try to get my factory side on that. There we go. That other side looked a little wonky for whatever reason, I don't know. Probably the girl that cut it the last time didn't do such a swift job, you'd think. Okay, so this is just a scrap now. So now I'm going to cut this one down to 4 inches as well. So we're going to cut that to 4 as well, and we'll set that piece to the side. And now what we want to do is cut little panels that will fill both sides of this piece of cardstock. And we will need 1 1/8, 4 cuts. Because this is an overall pattern and there isn't any beginning and end of it, we can cut them all off of this end. If I were using a pattern that had a right and left side to it, then I would cut 2 of these off the right and 2 of them off the left. I hope that makes sense. And then we'll cut this larger piece to 5 1/4. This is a scrap over here. And I'm going to cut the same thing out of this piece as well. So 1 1/8, 4 times, and then 5 1/4. There we go. And now I want to cut my 3 pieces, and I believe I'll cut it out of this polka dot, which is corresponding to these other 2 pieces very nicely. And I want to cut it at 1 inch. So I'm going to cut this piece right in half. And then I need 5 1/4 minus 1 tick. 2 pieces. I'm sorry, 3 pieces. 5 1/4 minus 1 tick. Save this piece. So there's our 3 pieces, 5 1/4 minus 1. And then we'll want 1 1/8 3 times off of this 1 inch piece. Okay, so now let's regroup and show you all the pieces that go into this card. We have the card base that's scored at 1 3/8, 2 3/4. Flip it, 1 3/8, 2 3/4. And we'll fold it like this and like that, so that when you have your folds finished, you have your panels that look like this, okay? And then we have our front panel that is 1 1/8 wide by 4 inches, 4 pieces. And they're going to go on these little pieces right here. And then we have 4 inches by 5 1/4, that's going to go in the middle. And we have that out of another piece of paper for the back side. And then for these 1 1/4 inch strips, we have a piece that's 1 inch wide by 5 1/4 minus a tick. And we have 3 of those. And then we have 3 pieces that are out of that same 1 inch piece that are these are 1 1/8, And there's 3 of them out of that 1-inch piece. So let's go ahead and put this card together, and it'll make a lot more sense to you as we go along. And I think what I might do on this front, let me get this first panel down. What I think I might do on the front is to alternate those smaller panels. And I'll use these pieces on the outside and these pieces on the inside. I think that'll look really pretty. Let's go ahead and get those glued in, and then of course we'll do the opposite on the back. These kind of card layouts are nice to have when you're trying to use up scraps because they use a lot of paper, especially if you double side them like we're going to do today. It allows you to use a lighter weight cardstock, which is a little less expensive than your heavyweight cardstock. Your card is every bit as substantial because you've got so much of the designer paper glued onto it now. So here's the first side, and then we're going to go to the back and do the same thing. And of course now if you have directional paper, you'll want to make sure you get the right side going up here, but I do not have directional paper, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm just going to put them down in the opposite way as I did on the front. They're not hard to make once you figure out your measurements, and if you need to stop and review the video again several times, that's always a good thing to do. That's one of the benefits to having YouTube. And we can always stop and back up, can't we? There we go. We're almost through with the back now. And then we're going to come to my little pieces that are going to be J-fold. So that's what's next. This is some of the lighter weight designer paper from Paper Wishes. I've had it for a long time. Their current designer paper is a little heavier weight than this is. And so I'm glad to kind of get this used up a little bit. So here's the front. And now we're going to work on these pieces. And I want to put all my panels down and put my colored cardstock up on them. And then I'm going to take these smaller pieces and put on this panel that's closest to that. And you have to watch and make sure you get them going the right way, because 1 inch is one side is 1 inch and the other side is 1 1/8 inches. So just check it before you get it stuck down there. You'll be able to see right away. There's 2 and this is 3. And now we're ready to put this card together with the J panels. I'm going to pre-fold my score lines so that they look like little J's. I guess they look like J's that way, don't they? Well, maybe, I don't know, whatever. At any rate, I know on Connie Stewart, she folded hers back like this, but I really like them better done this way. Just for my own personal preference. That's just a personal thing for me. I'm going to take the 2 that I want, top and bottom, and get them put in the direction that I want them to go. So it'll go like this. And I'm going to put some glue on about the 1st inch of your long piece on your J. And I'm going to flatten this back out. And I'm going to put this right down at the very bottom. Just right at the very bottom. And then I'm going to glue the one that I'm going to put at the top. Put me about 1 inch or 1.25 inches worth of glue there, and I'm going to put it all the way up to the top. It's easy to see if you flatten it out that you're not going wonky on it, and that's what we want, right like that. And then I'm going to take this 3rd piece, do exactly the same thing, and come in from the other side, right like this. Bring it all the way to the end. Make sure that my spacing is even here, going across these stripes, right like that. and get it all the way to the end. This one's not quite there. There we are. Now, the only thing we have to do now is put some glue on our little tabs here. And we can do all three of them at the same time. And then we just pick them up, fold this piece back, and set them right back down. I'm going to do the top one and the bottom one first, just like we did. Make sure that they're on the edge of the card, and make sure your card is good and flat when you put them back down. And then turn this one back and do exactly the same way. And there we go, right like that. So now, this is what your card's going to look like here. And this is what the back looks like. So let's go back to that paper towel now. What did I do with it? And I'm going to use these 3 panels and possibly these little roses. These are not as heavy as die cuts would be, and they're meant to be put up on either foam or some other kind of dimension so that you can put some extra space between the layers. And you can do a limited amount of space by just using some scrap paper to lift them up if you want to do it that way. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I use foam on these. It just kind of depends. And some of these will pull apart much easier than others I have found over the years. So I'm just going to cut this extra piece off and get rid of it. And then I believe I'll pull these little roses here, which are some extra artwork in this, and then I'll set this off to the side. And we'll take this piece then that we had saved, and I'm going to mount it here, but I want to put it through my die cutting machine. And let's see, I may not have enough room to put that through my die cutting machine. Make a little mark here, about right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut this then. I thought this piece might be a little bit bigger than it is, but it isn't. Then I'm going to round these corners. It will look nice with a little small radius corner round that the original artwork has on it. There we are, about like that. All that does now is to give this piece a little structure, and that's all I'm using it for. So let me go ahead and get this glued down. I'm wondering if I want to put a little brown edge around that, and I think I do, just to help it stand out a little bit. I think that'll give us a nice little differentiation there now. And I'm just going to glue this down. To this panel with an equal border all the way around, as close as I can get it. And there we go, right like that. And then this piece is the next piece, and I am going to put that up on some foam. And with this paper towel being lightweight as it is, I'm probably going to over foam it just to give it some substance so that it doesn't tear apart when it's getting pulled out of the envelope. We don't ever want that to happen. And now you're going to begin to see the benefit of paper towel and how beautiful it can really be. And especially when we add this third butterfly in, and all we're going to do with it is to put some foam up the middle of it, and then we're going to curl the wings a little bit. And I'm going to take my little paintbrush and kind of roll the wings a little bit. And then we'll fold them back. And then this really makes a nice focal point that way. And see, the antennae are already on this piece here, so I don't need to worry about that, but isn't that pretty? And then we're going to put this right up in the middle. I'll close it up for you so you can see, but we're going to put this right up in the middle of this section here. And all I need to do now is put glue on the top and the bottom here. And it looks like about a 1/2 inch worth of glue to me. Because this is a little heavier, I'm going to go ahead and glue it in good and heavy. And there we go. And then this piece is ready to set in. Right like this. And there we go. It's going to be a pretty card, isn't it? And then we have a sentiment that I have over here that I'm going to trim down to go on this side. Happiest of birthdays. And it looks to me like it needs to be about a 3/4 inch cut if I can get it sized like that. I may have trimmed it a little bit shy, so we may go down just a little bit more than 3/4 just to be even. Right like this. And so what I want to do when I put this sentiment in is to make sure that it doesn't extend out in here, because it's kind of a little hidden treat to pull out like that. So I'm going to trim off a little bit of this, and when I place my roses on it, I am going to make sure that they stay a little hidden as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to glue this in, and I can open it up all the way now. Well, let me see. It needs to go right about here. There we are. Happiest of birthdays. And then I want to take one of these little roses and glue on there. I can hear Cordelia in the background. She always gets in it, doesn't she? There's one. So if we fold it up to mail it, it looks like this, and then the recipient will open it up and it'll stand right like that. You see? Isn't that pretty? So let's look at the back now, and I think we can use this other little rose on the back. And all I'm going to do now is to take one of my inside layer panels that go in my cards and glue it in there. And let's see how that looks in here. That looks very nice, doesn't it? And then we'll use this little rose to trim it out a little bit and pull the front to the back of the card. And this gives you a nice little space to write your little note and sign it. And here's our little rose to go on the bottom of that sheet. And let me check and make sure now which is the bottom. Okay, I've got my hand on the bottom. So let's just put this right like that. And there, when it stands up on the back side, it'll look like that. And then on the front side, it'll look like this. And let's see if we can find some little gems to put on this. I think a few maybe little gold ones would be pretty, and I kind of maybe need another one or two in there. Don't you think? Like that, perhaps. And I want to leave this open and let that glue dry up well. That looks very nice. And then we might want to put a few on the back as well, kind of around these roses, because these are really extra special cards. And they'll be kept for quite a while, you know. This is not one that you open the envelope and toss in the trash. This is one that you put up on your mantle and enjoy for a long, long time. There we are. So this is the 4th card in that little series of triple J fold for me, and for the rest of the world they like to use the Z fold, but I don't like the way that elevates this area here personally, so I'd rather have my mechanics kind of hidden in the back that way. So at any rate, I hope you've enjoyed today's card and that you'll come back and visit with me again real soon. Talk then. Bye, everybody.